Hello, and welcome to another episode of Make Love Real, How to Create More Love in Your Life. I'm Mia Saenz, and I'm really excited in this episode to introduce to you Alexandra Stockwell. She's a medical doctor turned intimacy relationship coach, and she's pretty exciting. So welcome to the show, Alexandra.
Thank you. I am so glad to be right here with you and everyone listening.
So am I. Will you share with the audience a little bit more in detail about how you left the medical industry and became a relationship coach? I love that.
Yes, I will. So, in my mid-30s, I was practicing medicine. I was married. I still am married. I've been married for 24 years, and I had 3 of my 4 children at that time. And the main thing I want to convey is I spent a long time working towards getting to that place. I had paid off my medical school loans and I'd done a lot of training. I had my own holistic medical practice. I was married to a really wonderful man who's also a physician, mothering my children. And I really thought I should have had some sense of really having arrived. I had achieved the dreams I had at that point. And while I was satisfied and fulfilled, I loved practicing medicine. I felt this kind of at the level of a whisper, hollowness inside. And I just knew too much to know that what was a whisper in my mid-30s was only going to get louder and become a destructive force if I continued living that life for another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I will add that both of my parents died, and I became the oldest person in my family in my mid-30s, which I'm sure also factored into all of this. But the main thing is that I had what I thought were big dreams. I had fulfilled them all. I was living the life I had looked forward to, and I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel satisfied. No one would have guessed that because everything looked great. I was admired. I laughed a lot, so people wouldn't have guessed that. And the other thing that people wouldn't have necessarily guessed unless they were inside my head is that in living this dream, I prioritized my patients over my family and my family over myself in very subtle ways, but I also knew that that was not sustainable. And so in this collection that was not of awareness, that was not analytical, logical, methodical, or scientific, yet it was very real, I decided to take a sabbatical because I couldn't quite figure out not even how to adjust it, but what to adjust in order to be of greater service and enjoy my life more and just have more vibrancy in my veins. And so I took a sabbatical, and I kind of secretly knew I wouldn't go back, but I didn't have the courage to quite say that. But I did dial down my practice to nothing, and so no one was counting on my return. And really, for the first time, having been very driven, very focused, high school to college to a job in a hospital to medical school to residency and on the way married and a bunch of kids, focused, I gave myself permission while having a lot of responsibilities, running a household and caring for my children. But within that, I gave myself permission to have no agenda. And to, the same way I had listened to the whisper of not being fulfilled, listen for whispers of where to go next and how to be and what to pursue. And so in that context, I did some spiritual trainings. I did some dance classes. I went to the School of Womanly Arts with Mama Gina in New York City. I did a lot of different things. And actually, it was about 5 to 7 years later, having had a lot of adventures and really lived in a lack of structure, even though my children had a regular bedtime and I made 3 meals a day. And so I had external structure. Internally, I had permission to dream new dreams. And to my surprise, I ended up, for my own sake, taking an incredible training in sensuality and sexuality and really juicing up my life and passion and my relation to my body. And it also was a coach training. But at the time, I didn't know what a coach was. I took the letters after my name seriously and never would have dreamed of seeing a coach unless I happened to find myself an Olympic athlete at some point, which was totally unlikely, 0% chance of that. And but because I was in this program for my own, to find my own deliciousness and turn up the volume on that, I went to the lab to practice the coaching just to see what was happening there. I was curious. And that first lab, I just knew I'd come home, that the things that I really wanted to contribute and serve as a physician were all possible for me without almost any of the things that really were restrictive for me in practicing medicine. And so I have freedom, and I get to serve and improve people's lives, improve their health too, although that's usually kind of a fringe benefit and not the thing that brings to see me. Although it does really improve health. I just love that statistic that your health at the age of 50 is a better predictor. Sorry, your relationships at the age of 50 is a better predictor of the quality of your health at 80 than any other screening test. And so, since you have the background of being a nurse, like, the work we're doing improves people's health, but that is certainly not the thing that has them knocking on our door.
Right.
It's a much more direct benefit that people want.
I love that. That's such a beautiful story, because a lot of people who get to this place have had trauma, deep, deep trauma, right? So we teach what we most need to learn. And in a sense, your spirit, your soul is still calling you. I love that. There is a difference between being a nurse or a doctor and being a coach, right? Because we're limited in that one little tiny specific thing that we need to support or change, heal, as opposed to, wow, you can open up somebody's world differently. That's really beautiful.
Yes, and actually, as a physician, I was in a particular role, and it was my responsibility as a good physician to hold back a lot of my lived experience, life experience, stories from my own relationship. And as a coach, I can really, while having my full attention on a client, of course, and in service to them, I have access to all of who I am. And it's very healing for me, and it's very inspiring and transformational for clients, for me to literally draw on all of those things, which as a physician, I just couldn't do responsibly. I'd have to, find something that I'd lived and found valuable and then talk about it in the context of referring to a study. And I just skipped that last step, because who needs that? Studies are important, but that's not what motivates individual change.
Right. It's interesting because with what you're doing, you can also use it as a research thing too, for that side of you. That's what I do that stimulates me, is I use this beautiful work to search out how further I can reach people. And I know you are too, because as we were talking before, there's a lot of similarities between us, and I love that.
Yes,
You're totally awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you so that we can get into your first question, because that's where I want you to share your beauty with us of your work. Share with us the keys to a great relationship: knowing what you want.
Yeah. I guess I want to set the context for saying that I think the most common relationship advice that's given, really, maybe throughout the world, but certainly throughout the Western world, is that in order to have a great relationship, you have to learn to compromise. And the key to a great marriage is compromise. And I just think that is completely wrong. It's 180 degrees from that. And I really love having an opportunity to speak to single women, because often single women who are super competent and accomplished, even though they want the beauty and comfort and loveliness of a relationship, are also hesitant, because you look around and people don't have good relationships. So I think one of the main reasons for looking around, they're mostly seeing relationships which are uninspiring, is because people value compromise as the way to make the relationship better. And I just think that is completely not true. And what makes a great relationship is when both people bring all of who they are to the relationship, learning to love all of themselves and all of their partner. And that's when the passion and the emotional connection continues to improve with the years rather than the opposite. So in that context, it's so important for each person, and I would say especially the woman, if we're talking about a man-woman relationship, for the woman to know what she wants, to know how she wants to feel, and to know who she wants to be as a partner. And I think it is specifically unhelpful and creates an uphill battle and unnecessary hurdles if you go into the relationship unclear about that, because then you're basically waiting for your partner to answer those questions for you, to read your mind, know your intuition better than yourself, and provide the complementary experience that will invite you into your wholeness. And that just is not the way it works with human beings. In order to have those experiences of being fully seen and cherished and stimulated and surprised and loved and inspired and really share passion, a woman needs to know who she is and what she wants. And that can be an evolving thing. It's not like you answer that once, but I really believe that the key to both preparing for a great relationship and enjoying and sustaining a great relationship is for a woman to do what it takes to really be clear about what kind of relationship she wants and what she's going to bring to it.
It really is incredibly valuable and changes the dynamics of the relationship when someone is aware of what they want, who they are, what their value is. When you had said about the compromise, when we were talking about that, I was listening also as from, I was married almost my whole life. I was married for 27 years, went back to the dating world and remarried. And so it's interesting because that's the thing that we were taught, was that we were supposed to compromise.
Right.
And really an evolved relationship is two whole people coming together to love those nooks and crannies that one might not love from themselves, right? And in the partner. I love that you said that. How you said that was really beautiful. It really was. It supports marriage and couples, period, whether you're married or not.
Yeah, thank you. And I think many people anticipate that a long-term marriage means a dilution of passion. And I really think this relates to this matter of compromise, because if you are used to moving through your daily life, small compromises, insignificant things and bigger ones, you go to the restaurant he enjoys, you watch the movie he's going to enjoy because you'll be okay, rather than the one you really want to see. You know, this shows up really in micro decisions and macro decisions, consciously and unconsciously. If you are prioritizing compromise in your day-to-day interactions, as human beings, as women, how we do anything is how we do everything. And there is no switch that you can then flip when you're in the bedroom to bring all of your passionate self forward and really be expressed and enjoy the whole experience. If you want that in the bedroom, you have to cultivate that in the day-to-day too. In a one-night stand, that might not be true. But
Right.
for a long, sustainable relationship, it's absolutely true. And this is why I think whether one is just thinking of dating or is really dating a lot, or is it new in a relationship, or thinking about a commitment to the future, or married, in any of those states, go for more self-expression, go for more self-acceptance, go for more clarity about what's important to you, because in the process, you prepare yourself for real intimacy and evolving passion.
Let's also talk about, you talk about curiosity, and I believe this 100%. Curiosity brings more creativity in the relationship. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, okay. So I think one of the things that happens when a couple is together for a while, it's comforting that you feel like you know your partner. You know what you love about them, you know the idiosyncrasies. And as soon as you feel certain and you are no longer totally curious, you limit how much is possible in that relationship. And in fact, when I think of the experience of falling in love at the beginning of a relationship, it's filled with curiosity. Like, what did you have? What kind of birthday cake did you have when you turned 10?
Mhm.
What was the first airplane ride you took? Like, we're just filled with questions and want to know all there is to know. And then with time, the curiosity diminishes. And so I think the single thing that anyone listening can do the minute this conversation is over, as soon as you're done watching it, and implement it, really with anyone important in your life, but especially with a beloved, is ask open-ended questions and then really be present for what those answers are and accept them. And uh, what is the moment of your life you're most proud of? And if you had a magic wand, what's one thing about our life or your life you'd want to change? I mean, what do you daydream about? Any kind of open-ended question which doesn't point to logistics or something that you can already predict the answer brings creativity and it deepens connection.
That's beautiful. It also deepens the trust and the faith because of that connection, doesn't it?
It really does. However, um, I think it's often easier to ask questions and not always easier, and this is where the trust really comes in too, in being open to receiving the answer, especially if, for example, you transition into open-ended questions and say, what's a sexual fantasy that you have you've never told me? And maybe the response is one that, you don't want to do that. If you just say, I don't want to do that, or no way, you're training your partner not to open up to you. And so I think the trust is really built when we can be a yes to the sharing, whether or not we're enthusiastic about the specific content. And it's important
Right.
to be able to distinguish that.
Yeah. And as humans, we really want to be heard. At least I know I do. I want to
Yes,
be listened to. I want to be felt. I want to be seen.
yes. And in being heard and seen, we feel cherished, we
Hmm.
feel loved, we feel encouraged to be more vulnerable. Absolutely.
There's so many layers to us, obviously, as humans, and also to our relationship that as we dig with ourselves, we can open up more. What that little bit that we were just talking about being listened to and felt, I recall there was probably a time when I didn't want to fully be listened to because I wasn't connected to who I was or seen fully. And I think that humanity goes through that on a regular basis because the majority haven't done their inner work. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful question. I love how you framed it. And I'm reminded of a couple that I coached last week. She's 43, or she's 42, going to be 43, and he's a few years younger. And she really wants to get married and have a baby while that's biologically conducive. And so she's yearning to feel a level of adoration, appreciation, and then commitment from him. And so, in the context of coaching them, I asked him, what do you love about being with her? And he turned to her and started to say, and she really couldn't take it.
Mm.
She needed love, guidance, support from me, and to really slow things way down. And I actually think that's quite common when a woman is accomplished and driven and knows what her goals are. but to actually receive being seen, it's more confronting for many than we often assume. And it's really so tender to be fully seen and received.
It really is. It's a beautiful place. And that's part of the evolution of humanity, isn't it? We'll get there at
Yes.
some point for each of us.
Yes, and it's one of the things that we all really have enough currency to offer others on the way to receiving it ourselves. And I think anyone who makes an effort not to be codependent, not to overgive, but really just to be a loving, grounded witness to others, if you move through the world that way, you are in the process developing your capacity to receive that way as well.
Lovely. Really, really beautiful. I'm really glad that we had you on. Yay! This is lovely. Thank you.
I know. I don't know if people realize it's our first conversation, but I feel like we've each been dropped from a parachute to land on an island that's just perfect for both of us.
Yes, I agree too. It's just the beginning for us, absolutely, as colleagues and friends.
Yes.
Will you share with us your beautiful gift that you have for us?
Yeah, I'm really glad to have it. It's a process to help a woman, either a single woman or a woman in a relationship. There are two options to identify more of what you want. It's a vision for conscious partnership. And just like a business has a vision and a mission statement, any successful business is going to have those, either explicitly or implicitly. And I think every woman should move through the world with that too, and then every committed relationship as well. So this is a gift that walks you through the process of identifying what you want and who you want to be to have that if you're single. And if you're in a relationship, you can do it yourself, or you can do it together with your partner, which is a very exciting, revealing, delicious process.
I love that. Or you can do all three, right? You
Yes,
can do it with
indeed.
you can do it for your
Yes,
business, you can do it for yourself and with your partner. That's really beautiful.
Although I just want to add that the one to do with your partner, it involves each person doing it individually. So
awesome.
That's built in,
yes,
because
beautiful.
You need to have the space to connect with what you want, and then you bring that together.
Lovely. That's really perfect. I love that, because when I came into this lifestyle 10 years ago, and actually this will be like my 10-year anniversary when the show airs, because it was my first event was around this time 10 years ago. And
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, what's really amazing is I created my own mission statement for my life, like a business, because I wanted it to be a functioning thing. And so you sharing this with people is more valuable than 99% of the population even realizes, because when we understand what we want, I mean, I know you know this, but this is why I'm sharing this. When we understand what we want and we have that committed in our spirit, there's no stopping us. No one can turn us back. No one can stop that path, no matter how bad the trauma was before. It doesn't exist anymore, because we've stepped in to who we want to be, and we develop that.
Completely. And I really love how you've evoked that. And it can be a principle, but it's also real in very specific, minute things. Like if you're choosing between one pair of shoes and another pair of shoes, you can ask yourself, well, which of these would the woman in my vision for conscious partnership prefer? And maybe you buy both because they're equivalent, or it really doesn't matter. But there are decisions that can be made using that really as a kind of litmus test for whether or not what you're choosing is in work and clothes and how you spend your time is going to take you towards your vision.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thank you. What's the thing that you want to leave this audience with, that's on your heart, on your mind?
It's really very simple, but so important. And that is that having a great relationship with emotional intimacy and sensual passion and just so much rich nourishment, it's a learnable skill. And I think many people think, oh, you know, you're either born with that or you get a little coaching. No, it is 100% a learnable skill.
It's
So
fabulous.
if you want that, learn it.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Alexandra, so much for joining us. And thank you, audience. We'll see you in another episode of Make Love Real.